Today, the BBC Director General, Tim Davie, faced some fairly gentle questioning at the Culture Committee over the BBC's leadership of the Hugh Edwards scandal. But in truth, there's a much bigger story affecting the future of the BBC. Ministers are reportedly considering an official review of its funding model, as new figures revealed licence fee holders revolt, with 500,000 failing to renew their licence in the last year alone. The BBC funding model is well known to be outdated and needs clear reform. The institution, one of many in the public sector infected by the contagious bureaucratic groupthink, needs to feel the wind of the free market, because the licence fee is a terrible comfort blanket. What do I mean by this? Well, it makes the BBC think that it doesn't need to earn its living, and it therefore has wasted this enormous asset. The BBC, historically, was one of the great global broadcasters and had an income to go with it. When we had 1, 2, 3, 4 channels, at that point the BBC had a completely dominant position. It was the company that could buy the sport. It was the company that could do the big drama. It was the company that had the budgets. But as more competition has become in, the BBC has stagnated. So, in 2010, the BBC's income was £3.4 billion. Netflix had an income in 2010 of £1.6 billion. Today, the BBC is still only £5.7 billion against Netflix £23 billion. Netflix, which was a fraction of the BBC in 2010, is now 4 times the size of the BBC. And that's where the funding model is failing. Because instead of allowing the BBC to be one of the big global players, it has decayed and declined to being a relatively less successful regional player in a global market. But the licence fee has insulated the BBC from a feeling that it needed to earn its living, and of course from you, its viewers. If it were to change its income source to go to advertising and subscriptions, then it would be more linked to the people who watch it. It would have to be more responsive to its customers, as other businesses are. And I think many of us would find this perfectly reasonable. I use the iPlayer quite a bit, but wouldn't it be fair to pay for it? I pay, after all, the subscription to watch Test match cricket. And the licence fee that has protected the BBC from commercial reality is what has allowed it to slip into the mentality of the blob and to take on the blob's view of the world politically. As we recall, the IEA conducted a study that revealed the BBC's anti-Brexit bias, with disproportionate numbers of Remainers joining its programmes. And if you don't believe me about the BBC's bias, just look at the number of senior presenters who've gone on to make left-wing podcasts. Perhaps you'll mail Mogg to tell me the great list of people who've gone off to right-wing podcasts. I will happily read them all out. And it's the BBC's funding model that has made it so unresponsive, but at the same point, the Reithian moral tone has collapsed under the weight of the Jimmy Savile scandal, the Cliff Richard scandal, when he was so appallingly treated, and now the events surrounding Hugh Edwards. The BBC is a national treasure. It will be sharpened and burnished by the winds of competition, but it will be snuffed out by the comfort blanket of the licence fee.